The sky of Zalthara was burning. Crimson clouds swirling as debris from a fallen human warship rained across the dark horizon. Captain Elias Ward's ship, the Resolute, had been struck during a deep space ambush near the border of the Valerix Empire. He had managed to steer it toward the nearest moon, but gravity had done the rest, crushing metal and tearing apart engines until silence claimed the wreck. When he woke, smoke filled the air. His suit's oxygen warning blinked red. He crawled out from twisted steel and looked up, seeing two suns setting behind a spiked palace rising from the black sands. It looked alive, like the bones of some ancient beast turned into a fortress. His radio crackled. No response from command. He was truly alone. Moments later, shadows moved on the ridge. Tall figures with silver armor and eyes glowing blue surrounded him. Their weapons hummed softly, and one of them spoke in a strange melodic tongue. Elias raised his hands, speaking calmly. "I'm not your enemy." But the aliens didn't answer. They stunned him with a pulse shot, and everything went black. When he opened his eyes again, he was in a glass cell, metallic walls humming softly. Beyond the barrier stood a tall woman in a flowing robe of black and violet. Her skin shimmered like liquid metal, and her eyes burned gold. She was the queen of the Valerix, Sarathia, ruler of the most feared empire in the Orion Arm. She watched him silently for several minutes before speaking. Her voice was smooth and cold. "You have trespassed on royal ground, human." Elias stood, still weak. "I didn't plan to crash here," he said. "It was an accident." The queen's gaze was sharp. "Humans do not accidentally enter forbidden sectors," she replied. "Your kind destroys what it touches." Elias smiled faintly, even through pain. "If I meant harm, I'd have brought a fleet." For a second, she looked almost surprised by his tone. The guards shifted nervously, waiting for her command. But instead of ordering his execution, Sarathia said quietly, "Leave us." The guards hesitated but obeyed. Now only two remained, the queen and the broken human. "Why spare me?" Elias asked. "Because," she said slowly, walking around the glass barrier, "I want to understand how a fragile creature like you could challenge entire empires and still smile." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, a strange recognition. Curiosity mixed with something warmer. The queen studied his face as if reading a language lost to her people. "Your body is weak," she said, "but your mind, it burns bright." Elias laughed softly. "We humans are good at burning things, especially ourselves." Her lips curved in what almost looked like amusement. "Perhaps," she said, "that is why your kind is dangerous." Days passed and she returned often, always under the excuse of interrogation. She asked about Earth, its oceans, its wars, its art. He told her stories of humanity, of how they survived, how they dreamed, how they loved. Sometimes she listened silently. Other times she questioned with sharp interest. The queen began to feel something she couldn't explain. The sound of his heartbeat fascinated her. The warmth of his voice disturbed her peace. Her people were born in laboratories, bred for control. They had forgotten what emotion even felt like. But this human, he brought chaos to her perfect order. One night a tremor shook the palace. Alarms echoed through the halls. The planetary shield had failed due to a solar storm, and part of the structure went dark. Elias's cell flickered, the barrier collapsing. He stumbled out, coughing, when he saw her standing there, eyes wide. "Stay back," she warned. "The storm is lethal." But Elias moved closer, covering her with his damaged suit's shield. "You'll die if you stay here," he said. The queen stared at him, confused. "Why would you risk your life for your captor?" she demanded. "Because you're not my enemy," he said simply. Something inside her cracked. The queen had seen millions beg for mercy, thousands scream in fear, but no one had ever tried to save her. When the storm faded, the palace was silent again. She looked at the human, his armor scorched, breathing heavy. "You are either brave or foolish," she whispered. He smiled weakly. "Humans are usually both." For a long moment, she said nothing. Her golden eyes softened. "You are no longer my prisoner, Elias Ward," she said. "You will stay here until I decide what you truly are." As she turned away, she touched her stomach unconsciously, a strange warmth spreading through her body. Something she didn't yet understand, and for the first time in centuries the alien queen felt fear, not of war or rebellion, but of the human who had already begun to change her world. The following days passed in uneasy calm. The human and the queen remained separated by rank and silence, yet an invisible thread began to grow between them. Each morning, Sarathia found herself thinking of his words. "You're not my enemy." That sentence echoed in her mind like forbidden music. Elias, confined but alive, repaired a broken comm unit using scraps from his suit, not to escape, but to learn. The palace's walls whispered alien signals and encrypted commands. He listened quietly, realizing the empire was not as stable as it looked. Beneath the perfect discipline, fear pulsed like a buried fire. The queen visited again. Her robes shimmered in dim light, eyes colder than the stars. "Do you hate me, human?" she asked suddenly. Elias looked up from the floor, surprised. "No," he said. "Hate wastes energy." She tilted her head, confused. "Then what drives you to fight so fiercely?" He smiled slightly. "Because we have something to lose." For the first time in her life, Sarathia didn't have an answer. Her species had been engineered for conquest. Emotion was considered a weakness. Yet this fragile creature spoke with a strength she could not name. That night, she ordered his restraints removed. Her guards protested, but she silenced them with a look sharper than any blade. "He is under my observation," she said. "Touch him, and you will answer to me." From that moment, the queen began spending long hours with him, asking about Earth's history, about humanity's rise from dust to stars. Elias described the blue oceans, the endless forests, the smell of rain. Her eyes softened, as if she could almost feel it. In return, she shared stories of her people, of how they were born without mothers, created in birthing chambers of steel, every life planned, every emotion suppressed. "Love," she said slowly, "is a human infection." Elias laughed. "Then maybe you've already caught it." Her expression hardened, but her heart stumbled. For days, she avoided him, yet every report she read, every council meeting she attended, felt dull without his voice. When the next solar storm hit, Elias worked to stabilize the palace power grid using his knowledge of human engineering. "You risked yourself again," she said, watching him from a balcony. He shrugged. "It's what humans do. Fix broken things." She stared at him, the wind brushing her silver hair. "And what if the broken thing is me?" she whispered. He looked up, his voice calm. "Then I'd still try." The queen turned away before he could see her trembling. Later, in the privacy of her chamber, she placed a hand on her chest, feeling her heart race. That was when she realized. The rhythm was not her own anymore. From that night on, her dreams changed. She saw visions of a child with her eyes but a human's warmth. She felt strange energy inside her body, unstable, unfamiliar, alive. And in the heart of her empire, under 1,000 stars, the impossible began. The merging of two bloodlines that were never meant to meet. The queen of the Velarics had begun to change, and she knew deep down, it was because of him. The Velarics' palace had never known silence like this. The queen sat alone in her chamber, the stars outside moving like slow rivers of light. A strange warmth pulsed inside her body, a rhythm that was not her own. She tried to meditate, to push it away, but the feeling only grew stronger. When the royal physicians were called, their faces turned pale. They ran multiple scans, checked the data twice, and then fell to their knees in disbelief. "Your Majesty, the readings show you are with child." For a moment, Sarathia couldn't breathe. The words felt unreal. She, the queen of a species that no longer knew natural birth, carried life. Not engineered in a chamber, but growing within her. "That is impossible," she whispered. "We were designed sterile." But the physician trembled. "It is no error, my queen. The embryo carries mixed genetic signatures. Half Velarics, half human." Her heart froze. Her mind screamed denial. Yet deep down she already knew. It could only be him. Elias Ward, the human who had touched her soul and, unknowingly, rewritten her destiny. Within hours, the council convened. The great chamber buzzed with anger and fear. "A hybrid is an abomination," shouted High Chancellor Dreth. "Human corruption will taint our bloodline. We must cleanse it before it spreads." The queen rose slowly, her golden eyes glowing with fury. "You will not touch what is mine." The words echoed across the chamber like thunder. The council stared in shock. "Yours Majesty, this is a violation of every law our ancestors wrote," Dreth sneered. "If this truth leaves these walls, the Empire will fall." Sarathia's voice turned cold. "Then let it fall, if it cannot survive the truth." News spread through whispers and secret channels. The Empire trembled. Some soldiers began to question the Council's authority. Some worshipped the Queen as a divine being, the first to carry life naturally in centuries. Others called for her removal. Meanwhile, Elias was kept unaware, confined in his quarters under heavy guard. He noticed the sudden tension, the silence of the corridors, the way guards avoided his gaze. Something was wrong. That night, an old Velarix healer entered his room. She looked frail, her eyes kind. "Human," she said softly. "You must listen carefully. The Queen is with child. Yours." Elias froze. "That's not possible," he whispered. The healer shook her head. "It is. And your enemies are already planning to destroy her and the unborn." Elias's mind raced. He couldn't understand how such a thing could happen, yet he felt a fierce protectiveness rise within him. "Where is she now?" he demanded. "She is in the inner sanctum, surrounded by those who pretend loyalty," the healer said. "You have little time." Elias didn't wait. Using stolen access codes and the map he memorized weeks earlier, he slipped through the palace halls, dodging security drones and patrols. He reached the sanctum just as the counselors confronted her again. "You cannot defy the council, Sarathia," Dreth hissed. "End this madness before it destroys us." The queen stood tall, her hand on her abdomen. "Madness?" she said softly. "This life is the first hope our kind has had in 1,000 years." At that moment, the doors burst open. Elias appeared, breathless, bruised. "You're not alone," he said. His voice carried across the hall like a spark in dry wood. Guards raised their weapons. The queen stepped in front of him. "If you fire, you'll shoot your own queen." For the first time, Velarix soldiers hesitated. The silence stretched until Dreth snarled, "Then you leave us no choice." He activated a hidden beacon. Summoning the Imperial Guard, energy shields flared to life, alarms screamed. The queen looked at Elias, her voice trembling. "You shouldn't have come." He smiled faintly. "I promised I'd fix what's broken." The walls shook as explosions echoed through the palace. Loyalists clashed with rebels. The queen and Elias fled through secret tunnels beneath the throne room, their path lit by the faint glow of molten energy conduits. As they reached an escape hangar, Sarathia paused, placing a hand on his chest. "Elias," she said quietly, "what grows inside me? It feels alive, different. It frightens me." He took her hand gently. "It's not something to fear," he said. "It's proof that we can be more than enemies." She looked into his eyes, and for the first time in her immortal life, the queen of an empire felt something that no Valyrics had ever felt. Hope. Above them, the palace burned. The empire was collapsing into chaos, and somewhere deep within the queen's heart, the hybrid child pulsed softly, the beginning of a future no one could yet imagine. The queen and the human hid in the ruins outside the palace, the night sky lit by burning towers in the distance. The Valyrics empire was tearing itself apart. Loyalists hunted rebels, and every whisper carried her name. Inside a silent shelter carved from black crystal, Sarathia sat near the dim glow of a heater. Her hands trembled as she pressed them over her stomach. The life within her moved faintly, reminding her that time was running out. Elias returned from the edge of the ruins, his face streaked with dust. "They're searching every district," he said softly. "Your council wants you dead, and me with you." The queen looked up, her golden eyes glimmering. "My people fear what they do not understand," she said. "They think destroying me will erase their shame." He sat beside her, exhaustion heavy in his voice. "Then we have to run farther." She turned to him sharply. "Run where, human? The empire stretches across 1,000 systems." Elias smiled faintly. Then we find the one place they fear, she frowned. And what place would that be? Earth, he said simply. For a long moment the Queen was silent. The word itself felt dangerous. Your home is the very thing they hate most, she whispered. If I go there, they will declare eternal war. Then let them, he said quietly. Because on Earth, they'll never touch you. Before she could answer, the ground trembled. Energy blasts cracked through the air. A loyalist strike team had found them. Go, Elias shouted, grabbing her hand. They sprinted through collapsing corridors as explosions tore the walls apart. Blue plasma seared the air. The Queen stumbled but kept moving. Behind them, armored soldiers advanced, their voices echoing through the dust. By order of the Council, surrender the hybrid. Sarathia's fury ignited. She turned, her eyes blazing. You dare call my child an abomination? With a sweep of her hand, she unleashed a pulse of psychic energy, sending the soldiers crashing into the walls. Elias dragged her forward, but one blast hit him across the shoulder. He grunted in pain, smoke rising from his armor. Keep going, he said. Don't stop. They reached the surface, where the storm-lit sky howled above them. A single transport ship waited. A small scout craft half buried in sand. They climbed aboard as the attackers regrouped below. The engines roared to life, sand whipping across the landing field. Just as they lifted off, another figure appeared at the ridge. Chancellor Dreth himself, flanked by elite guards. He raised a weapon, shouting, You cannot run from your blood, Sarathia. The Queen's gaze hardened. I am not running, she said. I am beginning. She fired the ship's cannons, the explosion lighting the horizon like dawn. They escaped into the upper atmosphere, flames reflecting off the hull. Elias slumped against the control panel, bleeding. You all right? He asked weakly. She placed her hand over his wound, golden light spreading from her palm. You saved me more than once, human, she said softly. Now it is my turn. But even as the wound closed, her vision blurred. Her body felt colder each second. The power I used. It drains me, she whispered. Elias caught her before she collapsed. Rest. I've got you, he said, guiding the ship into stealth orbit. When she opened her eyes again, the stars looked peaceful. We can't stay here, Elias said. The Valyrics will track the ship's energy signature. There is one who can help, Sarathia murmured. A commander once loyal to me. Before the Council poisoned his faith. Elias nodded. Then we find him. Hours later, they reached an abandoned listening post hidden within an asteroid field. The commander Tavrek met them at the airlock. His silver armor was dented, his expression grim. My queen, he said quietly. They said you betrayed the Empire. Sarathia lifted her chin. No, Tavrek, I saved it, but they were too blind to see. He looked between her and Elias, realization dawning. So the rumors are true, he whispered. You carry his child. Elias tensed, ready for betrayal, but the commander only bowed. Then I stand with you, he said. The Empire has lost its soul. Relief washed through her, but it lasted only a moment. Tavrek's comms unit buzzed with a hidden signal. He turned pale. They traced me, he said. Run, before. The blast hit before he could finish. The control room erupted in fire. Metal screamed as pressure doors sealed automatically. Elias shielded the Queen as debris rained around them. Tavrek, wounded but alive, handed Elias a data chip. Coordinates, a sanctuary beyond the galactic rim. He gasped. Go. Sarathia reached for him, but the doors sealed shut, trapping Tavrek inside. He knew, she whispered, tears glimmering in her golden eyes. He knew they would follow. Elias started the escape pod sequence. We'll make his sacrifice mean something, he said firmly. As they launched into the dark void, the asteroid station exploded behind them, lighting up space like a dying star. The Queen watched the flames fade, whispering softly, They betrayed me, but I will not let them take our child. And somewhere deep inside her, rage and love fused into something unstoppable. A power that would shake the Empire itself. The pod drifted for days through the frozen silence of deep space, far beyond the Empire's reach. The stars around them looked like cold eyes watching. Inside, the Queen rested against the wall, her skin pale, her heartbeat slowing. Elias stayed awake, checking the controls again and again. When at last the pod entered orbit over a dying sun, a small green-blue world appeared below, half covered in mist. "There it is," Elias whispered. "Tavrek's sanctuary." He guided the pod down through stormy clouds until it touched the surface with a soft thud. They stepped out into a valley glowing with bioluminescent plants. The air was warm, and rain shimmered like liquid silver. The planet was quiet. Too quiet. No machines, no towers, only wind and light. "It's beautiful," Sarathia whispered. "So alive." Elias helped her walk to a small abandoned outpost nearby. Inside were traces of an old human colony. Rusted tools, faded banners, a cracked photograph of a laughing family. He set up a generator, warmth filling the room. Days turned into weeks. The Queen's strength slowly returned. Her child grew within her, glowing faintly under her skin like a soft golden light. At night she would rest her hand over her stomach and whisper in a language older than stars, "Little one, you will not be born into fear." Elias repaired a transmitter, but only for local use. "No signals," he said one evening. "If they find us, we're done." She smiled gently. "Then perhaps this is what peace feels like." They built a small shelter from metal and stone, a home between two worlds. Sometimes Elias told her stories of human childhood, laughter, music, and oceans. The Queen listened silently, her eyes soft. "Your species feels everything so deeply," she said one night. "It is painful, but beautiful." He chuckled. "That's what being human is." She looked at him for a long time. "Perhaps I am becoming human too," she whispered. Time passed, and their quiet days turned into something more. They worked together, shared meals, and even laughed. The Queen learned to cook. Her first attempt nearly set the kitchen on fire. Elias laughed until his ribs hurt, and for the first time in her long reign, Sarathia laughed too, but peace never lasts long. One evening, while Elias repaired a sensor array outside, the ground trembled. The transmitter had picked up a signal, faint but real. Velarik's ships had entered the system. Elias rushed inside. "They found us," he said. "We have maybe 1 hour before they arrive." The Queen stood still, her golden eyes calm. "Then we face them." "You can't fight in your condition," he argued. "You need to leave." She shook her head. "I am done running." Her hand glowed faintly as she touched his cheek. "Do you remember what you said to me the first day?" He nodded. "You're not my enemy." She smiled sadly. "And now you are my heart." Elias tried to hide the fear in his voice. "Then we'll fight together." Outside, the dark sky burned again. Dozens of ships broke through the clouds, descending like black angels of war. The Queen walked to the edge of the field, her long cloak fluttering in the wind. Her power radiated from her skin, the child inside her amplifying it like a star ready to ignite. Elias stood beside her, rifle in hand. "If this is the end, I'm glad I'm with you." She looked at him, her voice soft. "It is not the end, Elias. It is the beginning." As the enemy approached, she raised both hands, and golden light exploded from her body. The entire sky shimmered, lightning made of energy tearing through the clouds. The attacking ships faltered, their engines flickering. Elias watched in awe, unable to move. The Queen glowed like a living sun, her power expanding. "You must go," she shouted. "Take the escape shuttle. Protect our child." "I'm not leaving you," he yelled back. But the ground split, energy waves bursting outward. She turned, tears in her eyes. "You already saved me. Now save what comes after." Before he could reach her, the light consumed everything, ships, sky, and storm. When the light faded, only silence remained. The enemy fleet was gone, their ashes drifting like dust in orbit. Elias stumbled through the ruins, calling her name, Sarathia. Then he saw her, kneeling in the field, weak but alive, cradling something small in her arms, a newborn wrapped in shimmering cloth. Elias fell to his knees beside her, trembling. "Is it?" She smiled faintly. "A boy," she whispered. "Half human, half Velarix." fully alive. The child's eyes opened, one gold, one blue, and the dying sun reflected in both. Elias held them both close, his voice breaking. "We did it." The queen's strength faded, but peace filled her expression. "You were right," she whispered. "Love is not a weakness. It is creation." And as the stars above dimmed, the first child of two worlds cried softly, a sound that would one day echo across the galaxy, reminding every empire that even in war, humanity's heart could change the universe. The dawn on the sanctuary world came without color. The sky was gray, and the air was heavy with the scent of burning metal. Elias stood outside the small shelter, holding the infant close against his chest. The child's golden blue eyes reflected the fire still rising from the horizon. Behind him, Sarathia rested against a broken pillar, her body weak, her energy nearly gone. Yet her spirit burned stronger than ever. She looked up at the sky where faint shapes moved, dark specks growing larger. "They're coming," she whispered. Through the clouds, the Valyric's armada appeared. Enormous warships shaped like blades of night. They filled the heavens, their shadows falling across the valley like a living storm. Elias clenched his jaw, pressing the communicator on his wrist. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the Terran Defense Command." His voice cracked but carried power. "To any human fleet within range. Coordinates transmitted. We are under attack." Static answered first, then a faint voice. "Signal received. Deathworlder Command en route. Hold position." He smiled through the smoke. "They heard us." The queen struggled to stand. Elias rushed to her. "Stay down," he said. "You've done enough." She shook her head. "No, Elias. This is my empire, my sin, my redemption. I will not hide while others die for me." Above them, the first plasma bolts struck. The ground trembled as molten fire rained around. Elias shielded her with his body, the child crying softly. The queen raised her hand, and a wave of golden energy deflected the next blast. The explosion curved away, lighting up the mountains instead. She gasped, collapsing. Her strength flickered like a dying star. "I can't hold it for long," she whispered. "Then we fight until help arrives," Elias said, grabbing his weapon. He sprinted toward the ridge, firing at incoming drones, explosions blooming like fireflowers in the dust. The queen reached out with her mind, linking to the Valyric ships above. Her voice echoed through the enemy network like thunder. "Sons and daughters of the Empire, you kill your mother for fear of her child. Is this your honor?" Some ships hesitated, their formations breaking, but the High Council's flagship appeared next. A massive vessel with black sails and glowing crimson hull. It began charging a planet-killer weapon, a beam strong enough to erase the entire world. Elias saw the glow forming in the clouds. "They're going to wipe us out," he shouted. The queen closed her eyes, tears falling. "Then let them see what a mother can do." Her body lifted from the ground, her hair rising like fire in the wind. Energy rippled around her, forming golden tendrils that reached the sky. She spoke one final command into the air. "For the child who will change the stars." The beam fired, a torrent of red destruction slicing the heavens, but before it struck, her golden light surged upward, colliding with it. The explosion split the clouds, sending shockwaves across the planet. Elias shielded the infant and watched in awe. The two energies twisted together, gold and crimson, until the red began to fade. The queen screamed, the sound echoing across miles, and then everything went white. When the light faded, the Valyric's flagship was gone. Torn apart in orbit, the remaining ships scattered, their formation broken, and just then, new shapes appeared beyond the upper atmosphere. Sleek black vessels marked with the Terran insignia. Humanity's Deathworlder fleet had arrived. Their arrival shook the stars themselves. Massive dreadnoughts opened fire, blue plasma ripping through what was left of the Valyric's army. The battle lasted minutes, but to Elias it felt like hours. When the last enemy signal vanished, silence fell again. He ran toward the crater where the queen had stood. Smoke and dust swirled. And then he saw her, lying on the ground, motionless, but smiling faintly. Elias knelt beside her, his eyes filled with tears. "Sarathia, it's over." She opened her eyes weakly, No, Elias, she whispered. It has just begun. She reached out and touched the child's face. He is not human or Velerix, she said softly. He is something greater. Something we both gave life to. Elias nodded, unable to speak. Above them, the human admiral's voice came through the comms. Captain Ward, the enemy fleet is destroyed. We are ready for extraction. Elias looked at the child, then at the queen. We'll take you home, he said, but she shook her head. My place is here, with my people. He grasped her hand tightly. You'll die if you stay. She smiled faintly. Then I will die as a queen, not a fugitive. Her golden eyes dimmed. Promise me one thing, she whispered. Raise him to remember both worlds. Elias's voice trembled. I promise. A warm light passed between them, her energy fading into him like a last breath of dawn. Then she was still, her lips curved in peace. Elias stood, holding the child close. The Deathworlder fleet descended through the clouds, ships landing around him like guardians of heaven. Soldiers approached, staring in silence at the human holding an infant who glowed faintly with alien light. The Admiral removed his helmet. Is that? Elias nodded. The future, he said quietly. As the sun rose over the ruined valley, its light touched the Queen's resting place. Her flag, torn and burned, still fluttered weakly in the wind, and above, the human and Velerix fleets drifted side by side, silent for the first time. The war was over, but something far greater had been born. Years passed after the battle on the sanctuary world. The galaxy slowly healed. The scars of war faded, but the story of the alien queen and the human captain became legend whispered across every star system. Captain Elias Ward now lived on the edge of a quiet moon, far from both the Terran fleet and the ruins of the Velerix Empire. In his small home built under two suns, a child ran through the sand, laughing, curious, his eyes glowing gold and blue. Elias watched him with quiet pride. Come here, Kale, he called. The boy turned, smiling. Father, look. He held a small crystal that shimmered with light. It sings when I touch it. Elias smiled. That's because it recognizes your energy. You're part of something greater than both of us. At night, they would sit together under the stars, Elias telling him stories of Earth, of mountains, oceans, and the kindness of people who dreamed of peace. And when Kyle asked about his mother, Elias would look at the sky and say softly, She is the light that watches over us. But peace was fragile. The galaxy's balance trembled again as both human and Velerix leaders debated how to coexist. Many feared the child, calling him a weapon, a mistake. Others saw him as hope. One evening, a Terran envoy ship landed near Elias's home. A woman in uniform stepped out. Captain Ward, she said formally, the council requests your presence. It concerns your son. Elias felt a chill. What about him? The Velerix regent wishes to meet the child, she said. They claim it is her late queen's final command, that the heir must return to unite both bloodlines. Elias's heart pounded. He had promised Sarathia he would protect their son. But he also remembered her last words. Raise him to remember both worlds. That night, he sat beside the sleeping boy. Your mother believed you could heal what she and I could not, he whispered. Maybe she was right. The next day they left for the Velerix capital. Rebuilt under a new flag, the streets were no longer filled with fear, but with silence and memory. Statues of the fallen queen stood tall in every plaza, golden light shining from her image. At the palace gates, the new regent, Varen, awaited them. He bowed deeply. Welcome, Captain Ward, and welcome, Prince Kale. Kale blinked, unsure. Prince? Varen smiled kindly. Your mother gave everything so our people could feel again. You are her legacy. Elias remained cautious. You mean to make him a symbol? The regent nodded. Yes, but not a puppet. A bridge. A child of two stars. As they entered the royal hall, Kale touched the throne carved with twin emblems. The Valyric's crest and the Terran sigil merged as one. "It feels warm," he whispered. Elias watched silently, emotion tightening his throat. In that moment he saw Sarathia's reflection in the golden light, her voice echoing softly in his memory. "My place is here, with my people." Later that night, Kael asked, "Father, should I stay?" Elias knelt before him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "This is your mother's world. If you can bring peace here, then this is where you belong." Tears glimmered in the boy's mismatched eyes. "Will you come back?" "Always," Elias said. "No matter how far I go, I'll always find my way home." The next morning, as the first light rose over the crystalline towers, Kael stood before both human and Valyric's delegations. His small voice carried through the hall. "My mother gave me life, my father gave me love. I will give both worlds hope." The audience fell silent. For the first time in living memory, humans and aliens bowed together. Elias watched from the side, pride and sorrow mixing inside him. He knew the boy's path would not be easy. Peace never was. But it was real, and it had begun. Before leaving, Elias walked alone to the Queen's resting place. Her golden crown rested upon a stone slab under Darien, a dome of starlight. He placed his hand on it, whispering, "He's everything you dreamed, Sarathia, and more." The wind moved softly through the hall, and for a heartbeat, Elias thought he heard her voice, gentle and proud. "Thank you, human." As he turned to leave, the twin suns rose together, painting the sky in shades of gold and blue, the colors of their child, the colors of peace. And across the galaxy, ships from both species lowered their weapons, fleets stood down, and a message spread from world to world. The war that began with fear had ended with love. The universe would remember their names forever. Queen Sarathia of the Valyrics, Captain Elias Ward of Earth, and Kael, the child of two worlds, the hope of all stars.